It's my privilege to stand with you today in support of local communities, including Richmond, and the working people, including teachers, construction workers, healthcare workers, and the thousands of commuters to call on our local transportation officials and the California Department of Transportation to finally fix the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge. For too long, traffic congestion on the bridge has disproportionately impacted working families by releasing harmful pollutants into the air and backing up traffic that pours into residential neighborhoods. Regional Measure 3, approved by Bay Area voters in 2018, promised to improve the approach to the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge and dedicated $210 million toward this goal. We need those funds to alleviate the congestion that is hurting our communities. Every day, approximately 18,000 workers have to use the East Bay approach of the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge to get to work in the North Bay. Currently, there are 2 active full-time car lanes and 1 full-time bike lane on the westbound deck of the Richmond Bridge. Meanwhile, on the eastbound deck, there's an underutilized 3rd lane that is only open to cars during rush hour. We know this is the problem, worsening congestion and hurting communities like Richmond. This year, I authored Assembly Bill 1464, which called for opening up the 3rd lane westbound during commute hours to better manage and reduce congestion. While the bill was unfortunately held in the Assembly, I'm here today committing to continuing this effort. We need to reimagine the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge to emphasize multimodal transportation, open up the 3rd lane during busy commute hours while still preserving a bike path with a movable zipper lane. We know that standstill traffic creates 3 times the amount of pollution than a free-flowing highway. According to the Richmond Air Monitoring Network, during the morning rush, levels of particulate matter, nitrogen dioxide, and ground-level ozone spike, exposing residents near the bridge to these dangerous pollutants. I hope you'll join me in urging regional transportation officials to dedicate Regional Measure 3 funds to the solution and urge everyone to join our efforts and sign our petition at commonsensentransportation.com. And I'd like to now turn it over to Richmond City Council member Cesar Zepeda. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am here to stand with our community. It is the Black and brown communities in Richmond that are the most affected by this. It is not bikes against cars, it is actually a bridge against its own people. We have to make sure that we fix the route so that the people that live right next to the freeway are not affected. That the kids don't have to live with asthma. They don't have to live with chronic illnesses caused by the bridge. One of the biggest polluters in Richmond is the particulate matter coming from the vehicles that are just standing still on the bridge trying to cross over. It's the people that have to get to Marin. Those people are the workers. They are the legs, the arms, the brains that have to commute over. They have to bring their tools. They can't just bike over. On the weekends, it's great to have the bike lanes open. We have to figure out how do we have that bike lane down below during commute hours. What can we do to make sure that the people of Richmond receive an equitable and fair bridge that can represent all of the Bay Area? What can we do to make sure that equity is present in Richmond? So I stand with our community to make sure that we bring that equity to Richmond and fairness to our people who haven't always had a voice. But together we can give them that voice. Together we can make sure that that money that's being spent from RM3 comes to Richmond and that we build a better bridge. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Vernon Whitmore, the
president of Santa Fe Neighborhood Council. Santa Fe borders 580 from Cutting Boulevard on to Castro and then proceeds to the other highly trafficked area of our neighbors in the Point Richmond neighborhood. So, for instance, Saturday I experienced going an 11-mile drive from Cutting in Richmond to Audi of Marin. It took 20 minutes to get from Cutting Boulevard to the bridge. And then it took another 15 minutes to get from the bridge to Audi downtown San Rafael. So traffic studies do show the high pollution rates. But I've also read an article in the Washington Post dated July 9th. The article was basically saying that tires and brakes emit fine particles in the air linked to heart and lung disease. Now, it's bad enough with the congestion, but in a neighborhood like ours with the black and brown people that also are victims of these health items are very serious. And so we've already had the problem with asthma, and now since the industry is curbing some of the pollution from tailpipes, now we have brake dust and we have tire particles that we have to deal with. So it's very important that we do open up this to get a third lane. Otherwise, from every morning and on weekends, our people are breathing in these bad pollutant airs. Thanks a lot.
I am Willie Robinson with the Richmond branch NAACP, and as an organization who is a strong civil rights advocate, we have an arm of the NAACP that addresses environmental and climate justice. We've been involved with the impact of air quality in the area as a part of the AB 617, and we've noticed that not only that backup is now pushing people into the North Richmond community, but is also creating the pollutant that comes from the automobile, which is a mobile source. So we are most certainly strongly advocating for some relief or no new issues that will create a stronger backup that's coming throughout the communities that is predominantly black and brown persons in this community. So we are most certainly supportive of that. We know that that impacts persons who are in the labor forces who does commute across this bridge to provide services into the West Marin County, west of the bridge, which is Marin County. And in order to get over there, we are noticing that that backup is getting continuously longer, not only during work days, but even on holidays, which is the direct impact of that bicycle lane, which should be adjusted. So we are strongly advocating for a change in how that is addressed and some relief in terms of making sure that it does not create any more hazard or air pollution in the area where the people are living on the eastern anchorage of this bridge. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joe Fisher. I'm the president of the Coronado Neighborhood Council, which is actually only a few miles from here, right behind the Santa Fe Neighborhood Council. And I am just honored here today to be able to meet with this diverse group of community leaders, elected officials, to help to alleviate this problem we have here. We've been working on this for some time, and hopefully we'll be able to alleviate the backup. And as mentioned before, of African Americans, people who are traveling this bridge each and every day are people who look like me or minorities. Each and every day traveling and getting backed up for work. Can't afford to be able to purchase a home in Marin City, but nevertheless working in Marin. Difficult to get there, stuck up in traffic, backed up each and every day. And I'm just honored to be here with this group, to be able to work together, to be able to eliminate this problem we're having. I want to thank you.
My name is John Grubb. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Bay Area Council. we're really happy to be here with all these local leaders and believe in this cause and the solution we have for the Richmond Bridge. Again, every day more than 18,000 workers who rely on the bridge are forced to sit in bumper-to-bumper traffic on their commute because of the continued closure of the third lane. The pollution from this stopped traffic causes harmful pollutants that cause cardiovascular, respiratory, and neurological diseases. In fact, studies show that stop-and-go traffic emits 3 times the amount of pollution into the air of a free-flowing freeway. If we open the third lane on the Richmond Bridge, we can stop this pollution from entering the communities who live along the bridge corridor and save commuters time on their way to work. Our plan solves these issues and still ensures there is a continuously operating bike lane on either deck of the bridge. The eastbound deck of the bridge already has an underutilized third lane that's only open to traffic during peak commutes. Our plan wants to do the same on the westbound, on the upper deck. If we install a zippable barrier, just like we have on the upper deck, on the lower deck, we can ensure that we have equal access to the bridge and stop mass amounts of pollution from spilling into Richmond. Your support for our movement can go a long way in helping to improve the lives of everyone affected by this issue. We have some graphics here that I want to point out really quickly at the end of the press conference here. This one, it's right over here. So this, which moves in the wind. That is the Regional Measure 3 expenditure plan. These are approved existing funds. And if you look, there's a highlighted yellow line right there. And it says 210. That's $210 million that was set aside in Regional Measure 3 to improve the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge. That's the money we're calling on to fix this situation. There's plenty of money to do it. We just have bureaucracy in the way. So thank you, and now we'll accept any questions that anyone might have.
We already know that the bicycle coalitions in this area are not supportive of what you're suggesting here. But how about the Assemblywoman Buffy Wicks that covers this area, and the Richmond City Council, but also the Richmond Progressive Alliance, which controls a lot of what happens in the city? What kind of support do you have with them?
So I'll let Damon speak on Assemblymember Wicks, who I believe voted for this, for his bill. And then in terms of the Richmond City Council, really, Caesar, you should speak to that, right? You sponsored a resolution. There was a resolution that was sponsored to call for air quality studies to be done on.
We can't hear you.
Backup. Sorry. Yeah. Do you want to? One of the two of you speak to that?
I appreciate the question. There is a broad coalition supporting this, including my colleagues in the Assembly, local leaders as well. Certainly in the education community, the business community, we're seeing neighborhoods come out in force given the need. There's no question that something has to be done. What we're not doing is here pitting single occupancy vehicles versus bikes. This is really going to have to be a multimodal solution, respecting all forms of transportation. And it's part of a larger set of solutions. There's some low-hanging fruit here that should be implemented immediately, including open road tolling as an example. We know that part of the morning backup in particular is caused by the configuration and outdated toll plaza system that we have now. That needs to change immediately. We need to install better transit options through this corridor. There's no question about that as well. As a legislature, we can't dictate particular projects to Caltrans. So the purpose of my legislation is to, in effect, suggest to Caltrans and the state, as you look at solutions, look at what's worked. We know that as soon as a third lane was installed eastbound during PM commute hours, we all recall the tremendous backup that was occurring at night, that problem was resolved. So what we're looking to do now is create a similar solution in the westbound direction during AM peak commute hours. We have a movable zipper lane, so it would be utilizing that to create third lane vehicular capability in the morning. And I think what you're hearing suggested is a solution that would actually maintain bike coverage by creating a movable third lane on the lower deck as well, with a zipper system as well. So I think you'll find that there is support in the legislature. This bill this year was held up in the Appropriations Committee. So we intend to continue to work through issues and see the bill, or certainly these concepts, moving forward. It will not be cheap. The last thing we want to do, for example, is simply to move congestion to the other side of the bridge. So we've heard loud and clear we will need to deal with infrastructure issues on the Marin side as well. And we fully intend to continue to work through that. The good news is, as my colleagues have said well, there is money right now dedicated to this corridor through Regional Measure 3. But we also know that there is a great deal of federal infrastructure money right now and other sources. So it's going to be bringing all those resources together with a clear understanding of the need we're talking about and the communities that are most impacted, that are most seeing the results of the unacceptable status quo right now, including to their public health, but also to the soul-crushing commute that they have to endure, I would submit, unnecessarily every morning at this time. Thank you.
I would like to address the part with the Richmond Neighborhood Council. If I'm not mistaken, we started at the Richmond City Council and we received our support. And we also mentioned that we wasn't trying to eliminate the bikers from crossing the bridge. We just wanted to make an adjustment. However, you know, right now, 8,000 commuters in the morning use the bridge coming across, and only around 17 bikers. So we want to be very clear about this. We're not trying to eliminate the bikers. I hope that answers your question with that.
In regards to the City Council, I'll bring forth, when we come back from break, a resolution, and I'm sure that my council members will support it, because they are very much in support of equity. They're very much in support of making sure that our communities breathe, and they breathe good air, and that they're not victims of the pollution that's happening from out-of-towners, or even from people that have to leave the city to go work, or leave the city to go somewhere else, even for the weekend. So we want to make sure that the City Council supports it, and I'm pretty sure that it'll have that support from our council members. And again, it's all about equity. Right now, the monies that are out there, the 210, the majority right now is set to be used by the Marin side. So we want to make sure that we shift the conversation and that Richmond has a bigger say over how we utilize that money. This is about equity and making sure that we put in the people that are going to need it the most at the forefront of this conversation. Thank you.
Two questions about the money involved here. What's your estimate for how much this project will cost, as you know, given the infrastructure changes needed on the grid side? That's one question. The other one is about the $210 million. That's not just lying out there for anybody to use. That's been designated. So it would have to be repurposed. And so how would that work? I mean, this is really a call on the Metropolitan Transportation Commission to do something.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. So the decision makers on this are the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and a subgroup of them called the Bay Area Toll Authority. The cost of the solutions that would fix 90% of the problem is about $190 million. do that. Most of that is on the Marin side improvements that you're asking for, but it's also to remove the toll booths on this side, which are sort of an architectural feature from the 1950s, but we don't need that anymore. So that's the rough cost estimate. 100% solution is more expensive. It's about $300 million, so I think we would accept the 90% solution in this case.
We've been reading locally, this side of the bay, recently about how the zippered bike lane barrier, because it's not being used, it actually doesn't work. So how do we address that?
We haven't heard that. Can you explain what you mean by it doesn't work?
You say that first off, you said they've rarely ever used the zippered barrier.
Yeah.
Okay, so because of lack of use over the past couple of years, they can't actually use it. This is coming from bridge officials. Of course, we're hearing this on social media, so you can take it for what it is.
They use the zipper lane on the Golden Gate Bridge every day, probably multiple times a day. There's no difference in the technology, so I don't know the specifics of that, but I know they have used it before, and so we'll have to look into that. But it seems like the basic technology is there.
It's not the technology, it's the lack of use. Things just sit there for 2 or 3 years. They don't work the way they were designed.
Whatever the challenge is, we'll work for it.
Right?
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you everybody.
Thanks,
We really
everyone.
appreciate it.